and welcome back to AR77. Thanks very much for joining me today for another review video. On the table in front of us today we have the Beretta Model 84 by Umarex. This is a 4.5mm BB gun powered by 12 grams CO2 capsule. I'll just pop it over there and show you some deets. A really nice gun, overlooked by me. It's not a new gun in terms of Umarex's catalogue, but it's new to me, and to my shame I had kind of overlooked it up to this point. Sometimes called the Cheetah. I think they were sort of referred to as the Cheetah from kind of the 90s, but as I understand it, the Model 84 joined the kind of the 80 series, or 81 series as it's sometimes called, from Beretta. I think the 84 joined around 1976, something like that. I think there's a Model 81 through to 89. I don't think there's an 88, although there's like an 87 Target and a few different variations within. But I digress. This is the Model 84, or Cheetah, if you prefer. Really nice gun, basically. It's what I would call full metal. Metal slide, metal frame, and a lot of the other parts within are metal, and it's a really lovely gun to shoot. This is a replica of the FS version, which you can tell A because it says on the other side Model 84 FS, and also the kind of the squared trigger guard, just like the sort of 92 FS. Is a bit of a dead giveaway that this is modelled on the 84 FS. If you look at the airgun, the Crossman PFM 16, which is a kind of it's similar to the Defender in that it's kind of a one-piece or non-moving gun, if you will. That's similar to what the Model 81 would have had. The original of these sorts of this series of gun had a more swooping line around the trigger guard, like the if I bring on the Beretta 92, this is the M9A1, but that is a more traditional shape for earlier Beretta 92s. Okay, so what else can I tell you about this? Well, the original was chambered in 380 ACP, which I think is kind of 9x17mm, and would carry 13 rounds in a double stack magazine, meaning that it was relatively hefty at the rear, and across both the real steel and the airgun, that's kind of noticeable in terms of the styling. The gun definitely has a large derriere, shall we say, and kind of tapers towards the front, both in kind of width as well as kind of height, frame height. You can see it kind of goes to this sort of point or pointier end at the front of the muzzle there, which is, it leaves you feeling like you're holding something quite powerful because it's got a chunky sort of grip to get hold of. A lot of Berettas, a lot of the styling looks quite aggressive, but I feel that this, for me, it feels like quite a graceful gun. I think the fact that it sort of slims towards the front, and again, because it's a kind of classic design, there's no rail at the front of here, some nice smoother lines towards the front of the pistol, and it does feel like you've got a chunk of something in your hand, but at the same time it feels like a classic weapon. It feels like something which is of perhaps a different era to things like the VP9 and the M&P and the the Glocks, things like that. Other notable mentions, I think Browning released a gun called the BDA 380, obviously chambered in 380 in the 70s, which was kind of based on the 84, but had an enclosed slide, so it wasn't the sort of traditional open slide there that you'd associate with Beretta. And I think they'd made some other changes. That's a really handsome gun. I'd love it if they made one of those in an airgun version. And this year is quite a significant year because they released the 80X, which is also kind of an updated version of the 84 FS. If I put a picture up for you, you can see that it's very similar to the 84 FS, but also has things like this sort of the more modern kind of grip styling that you'd see on something like the M9A3 there. Another lovely gun. We won't focus on that too much because this here is the star of today's show. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the Beretta Model 84 by Umarex. Again, well done, Umarex. They were getting things so right, even from earlier on in the history of the kind of the blowback replica airgun. Again, this is not a new design, but I would say that it is in some ways superior to a lot of newer guns that the Umarex have brought out. So I'd like to see a return to this kind of form. In many ways. It's a similar size and weight to the real thing. I think this is 644 kilograms. I think the real steel is 660. And as I said before, it's kind of all metal, other than, you know, grips, which wouldn't have been metal on the real steel anyway. They'd have been plastic or something similar. I think hammer might be plastic as well. Control switches and trigger. I think the trigger might well be metal, but I'm not sure. But control switches, trigger, hammer, the jury's out. I think that might be plastic, but these might well be metal. Perhaps not that. But for the most part, the gun in the heavy elements of its construction is metal. It's also if I just drop the magazine out here, stick it to one side. It's a fully operational. You know, you can rack the slide. It is a blowback gun, so you can blow it. You can blow it. You can well, maybe edit that. Maybe just not edit it. You can rack the slide, shoot the gun, and it will blow back. And on the last round, it will stay back, ready for you to kind of release. So if I put that back, you can see that it will release with some gusto there. From the front, then, we have a really good recessed barrel there. It takes me to quite some angle before you can actually see the actual barrel itself inside there. Which is helped, I guess, by the kind of the Beretta styling, where the barrel extends beyond the slide, as it does in the Big Brother, I guess, the 92. That kind of classic Beretta styling. Again, quite a subtle front post there. And pretty traditional sights at the back, similar to the Walther PPKS that I've just reviewed. You know, I like that really subtle. You know, I'm all for white dots and all that, but I do like that more subtle kind of styling there. And I also like the fact that, just from a design point of view, the slide here slopes up and swoops up, and the front post meets it at the sort of same angle. I just think little details like that kind of do it for me. And as that rear sight catches the light, it's almost like you've got a couple of dots on there if you're having a lucky day. So the sights are pretty straightforward. Again, open, exposed barrel, an open slide, showing that kind of classic Beretta styling, which itself obviously draws on the open barrel design of the Walther P38, which I'll show you there. There's another classic Umarex that I don't currently have. But that will be finding its way, I think, into my collection, having seen the sort of the quality of some of these earlier Umarex guns. I'm really quite impressed. So coming to the kind of the back of the slide here, the hammer here does have a little bit of play to it. It's not what I would call loose. It doesn't feel like it's broken. It's just there's a bit of play to it, and yet when you cock it, it locks up nicely, so something to be aware of. If you pick one of these up and it's like that, I don't think there's any great cause for concern. But once you cock it, it locks up and you're all good. I think because I've got my green jumper on today, I think the camera keeps adjusting and changing the kind of the red-green balance, so it keeps going a bit sort of pink, which I'm just going to embrace because I'm down with that. What else can I tell you? Subtle markings on the slide. None of that white writing apart from serial number there. Pietro Beretta. Really nicely done. That's exactly how I would prefer it, even though we've got this kind of giveaway kind of 4.5mm or .177, the airgun caliber markings there. It doesn't give it away too much that it's an airgun. And frankly, if you're worried about people thinking it's an airgun, then you're carrying it in the wrong way and in the wrong place. But from an enjoyment point of view, a bit of writing there, as long as it's kind of blacked out, as long as it's kind of subtle, that doesn't bother me one bit. I still think it's a lovely looking replica. We've got angled serrations on both sides at the back here, which are quite nice, and there's quite a lot of them, so there's plenty of room, you know, to get your thumb on there and rack the slide like that, which is quite good. And different to the 92, you can see that kind of more like the Taurus, I suppose. The slide safety is built into the frame there, so it's not getting in your way when you do rack the slide, which I know is a bit of a bugbear for some people. If we look at the 92 A1 here, you can see that again we've got plenty slide to get hold of, but some people don't like the fact that that safety is just right on the slide there. So when you're racking it, some people find it gets in the way. I don't know. Again, I've said this before, but you'd probably shoot double action first anyway, and then it would go into single action following that point. On the left hand side, we do have some controls. We've got your working safety, we've got your kind of your slide catch there. In terms of the safety, if you engage it, the trigger just locks up completely like that, and it is a ambidextrous safety, so it's operable on both sides, and it has a lovely clear red dot there. So if you have your hammer drawn like that and you put the safety on, the trigger is locked, so the hammer can't come down, and even when not cocked, you can see that that's fully deactivated. Different to the 92A1, yeah, it's probably not fair to compare the two guns because they are different, and they are, you know, they stand on their own 2 feet in their own right. But just as in case somebody's watching this thinking, oh, is it just a smaller version of the 92 FS or A1? It's not. It operates in slightly different ways. The safety there isn't a decocker, it is just a safety, so I thought it's probably worth pointing that out as well. And I guess that means that you could run it like a 1911. I always harken back to the 1911. You could rack the slide, get it cocked, and then put the safety on and run it kind of locked and cocked if you want, and then just drop that safety and pull the trigger. So anyone who's familiar with 1911s can operate the 84 in the same sort of way. The metal frame features quite a nice large mag release catch there, which is quite good because it is a decent sized grip, but you can easily find that, access it, and kind of drop your mag. I'll come back to the mag a little bit later on. But what I will say is the magazine is spring loaded, so when you push that down, it does come out, as you can see, with quite some gusto at almost the same feet per second as the BBs come out with the front. That was an attempt at a joke. And that's aided by this kind of mechanism, it seems. Here, it looks like this is spring loaded and probably pushes the mag out as it drops. Yeah, that's the way it seems to be to me anyway. Again, I already mentioned that kind of squared off trigger guard at the front there. It's a decent, you know, it's a nice trigger guard, plenty of room to get your finger in there. I don't really use that, in all honesty. I don't rest a finger at the front of the guard there. I do like the styling, I do like the look of that and the FS, but it's not something that I would write home about, and yet it's nice to have it accurately represented on the replica airgun. Now on the trigger, we have some ridges here, which is quite good. It does have quite a heavy pull, which I think is due really to the trigger design, which, similar to other what I've called in other videos kind of tier 2 guns like the Smith & Wesson M&P, the Glock 19X blowback, the kind of the slide mechanism engages with the top of the magazine. In fact, I did a video about exactly how that works just recently. I can't remember what it was called, but I think that's what's happening. So the trigger is simultaneously sending around kind of into the breech, while at the same time releasing a burst of CO2, which technically makes it a double action pistol, which explains that kind of heavy trigger pull. However, it operates more similar to a single action gun, meaning that without first pulling back the hammer or racking that slide, you can't just pull the trigger, which is different to the real steel, because the real steel, Told myself I would stop saying that. The actual firearm would fire in single action and double action. So this is a bit of a deviation from that. Although interestingly, the box the box says double action. So I don't know if that's just due to the fact of how the trigger works and the magazine system. I don't know. But the Airgun, I would say, works as what you would call a single action gun, and yet yes, it is technically doing two things when you pull the trigger. Within that, of all those types of gun, the Smith & Wesson M&P, the 84FS here, the Glock 19X, with those kind of more difficult trigger systems, that by far the smoothest is the H&K VP9. In my humble opinion, that's the one that's easiest to shoot in that kind of double action. I guess this is single action when you're pulling the trigger, and yet you still feel a bit of effort when you're pulling that trigger when there's CO2 and ammunition in it. You can really see the difference there, can't you, between this sort of a more compact sized pistol back in the day and something like the VP9 there, which, would you call that compact? That's probably what you'd call full size, that, isn't it? I don't know. And yet, look how modern the VP9 looks, and that's not even really a new design compared to the classic design of the Beretta 84FS. While we're on the trigger, so there's quite a clear wall for you to find just back there before it kind of releases. So that's dead easy to find, to get yourself up to the wall and then release the trigger. When you let go, like let's say it's kind of blown back like that, and your finger's still at that point on the trigger, you've released a round of ammunition, and you let go to what you think might be a reset. So see if we can just hear that. Okay, so that's what you would think your reset is, but when you go to pull the trigger, the hammer will come down, but the BB won't be released out of the front. So when you get to that, when you've pulled the trigger and the slider's blown back, you have to kind of fully let go. Well, not let go, but let it go at the full distance of its travel, the trigger that is, before you then shoot again. The reason behind that is you'll feed a BB without allowing the CO2 mechanism to reset. So I don't know if I said that the right way around the first time, but basically when you shoot and you release. Let me do that again because I did that wrong. So let's say you shoot, the slide reciprocates. When you get to there and it feels like it's reset, all you're doing if you pull the trigger at that point is feeding a BB. If you don't let it get all the way back before pulling the trigger again, you're not going to release any CO2. So I think the CO2 valve needs you to go a bit further to reset. There you go. I probably made a bit of a dog's dinner of that in explaining that, but hopefully you got the point of what I was trying to say. Let's move on quickly. Plastic grip, as per the original, features this nice kind of Beretta emblem there, and your screws all look like they're in the right place there. Nice bit of kind of groovage to the front strap there. Smooth at the rear, which shows that it's kind of a two-piece metal frame, and I would have preferred them to kind of mask that, really. I'm assuming this would have been a kind of a one-piece thing in the real firearm version. I don't know if they could have put some more grooves like that at the back to mask it, but maybe that wouldn't have been accurate in terms of it being a replica. So it's a minor thing. I'm really splitting hairs there. It's quite a short beaver tail, but when you are shooting, the hammer kind of it doesn't go that low, so it's not gonna, when it's blowing back, you're not going to get any hammer pinch or hammer bite or whatever they call it, if that's something you're at all concerned about, which I frankly very much doubt. On the right hand side, once again, we've got a very clear red dot with that ambidextrous safety. Further Beretta branding, as we said before, and caliber information, tastefully done. This is a takedown lever on the right hand side, and it does allow you to remove the slide and lubricate. So let me show you that. Just take the mag out, and what you do here is there's a little button on the left hand side. You push that in, which allows you to flick that down nice and easy. And once you've done that, your slide will come back up and over, giving you your slide and your frame here, allowing you to get in there and do your lubrication bits. You can see where you can lubricate under there, where the slide kind of sits at the back, and get in there and do whatever you want. Again, this is that slide mechanism that engages with the top of the magazine. You can see that it pushes this piece forward and pushes a BB into the breech when you pull the trigger, and at some point also opens the valve and releases a little bit of CO2. When you've got your slide here, sometimes that spring will stay in the front of the slide, sometimes it'll stay around your kind of guide rod, but you've got your seal there and not much else really going on in there. You could lubricate these back pieces that meet up with the lower bit or the frame. Right, let's see if I can get this back on. Nice and easy. How's that? Yeah. So once it's back on, you can just push that in just to make it easier for that to clip up, and then you are back in the business, up and dancing. Okay, let's look at the magazine. Let's drop that, and as it pops out, you can see that this is a full-size magazine. It's plastic and metal, although it seems pretty robust the way it's put together. It seems they've done some things here to reduce the weight of it, perhaps again hairs, but it's very robust. The metal and the plastic are formed very nicely. All sits very stable. There's a lot going on in the top of the magazine there in terms of the way it functions, as I've already described. It holds 17 rounds of ammunition, 4.5 BBs, 4.5mm BBs, plus obviously the CO2. CO2 just drops in there head first and is tightened with the attached screw and the tab, which is quite nicely sprung, and so it kind of sinks. As you can see, it's actually got a thing there that says push. So you push that and it'll pop up for you, and as you can see, it's almost like countersunk a little bit, so that when it's away, it sinks into the base of the mag and isn't as obvious. That's not the case when it's gassed, because obviously a certain amount of twists depending on your starting point, and that could be in all sorts of positions. When you're shooting the gun, it might be like that. But again, tiny little things. I think it's a decent mag. I think the follower seems to be metal. This is my favourite system as well. When you got a follower that locks back and you've got the access hole for the BBs, that's my favourite kind of system. It just seems a lot easier than perhaps some other methods. Yeah, and I don't know. It's an earlier gun, isn't it? But even still, some modern guns still do this. I'd rather not have the tab on the base there, because when you're popping it in, I like to sort of give it a tap, and I'm not sure that I like tapping the tab when I'm putting my magazine in. So, and I've seen other people, they take that off and they just have a different screw in there, so it looks flat across the bottom. If I were that bothered, I could perhaps do that with this gun, or my Colt 1911 Special Combat, which is a similar kind of thing. But actually, it's not that intrusive, and frankly, when I'm shooting the gun, I don't see that anyway. I don't notice it. It's only when I come to looking at the bottom of the mag, and in all honesty, I much prefer, I guess, the ease of use. Or maybe not prefer it, but I appreciate the ease of use to the point where I can forgive that tab being on the bottom there. Some good punchy blowback to this gun. It does feel great to shoot. I think due to the fact that you've got so much control over the grip as well, and because of that sort of shorter, more compact slide, it is metal, so it's got a bit of weight to it, but it's also an open slide, so it moves quite freely. It's yeah, it's a really pleasurable gun to hold and to shoot. Again, I use that phrase, very, very tactile. And the metal of the gun gives a nice weight as well. As I said before, the slide does lock back after the last shot. This one shoots a touch low, but I would say very, very straight in terms of kind of side-to-side deviation. It shoots a little bit low. I think on the box, it claims up to about 125 meters per second, which I think equates to kind of 410 feet per second, which I'm dubious of. But it shoots, you know, perfectly well enough for a replica airgun. At the end of the day, it's a plinker. I really like this gun. I really like it. I think the only thing I would change would be that magazine. I would perhaps try and think of a different mechanism, although the tab isn't the biggest issue. I think I would rather have it fully enclosed. I would rather have it full metal and fully enclosed. And yet, as I said before, it does what it needs to do. The gun is compact and it is hardy. If we look at, let's have a look, bringing on the 92A1, or I should have perhaps had out my 92FS, although I think function-wise, because the 92FS is that rotary kind of pellet gun, function-wise, this functions in a far more similar way to the 92A1, and I think just looking at them together, they make quite nice stable mates. Yeah, you could say it's kind of a little brother to the 92, but I would say, as I said at the start of the video, or slightly earlier on in the video, it stands on its own 2 feet, the 824FS. I really, really like it. Just under £150 in the UK if you're looking to get your hands on one. Obviously, I don't have the price list of every retailer in the country, so you might be charged a little more than that, especially if you're getting it mail order. You might find yourself a bargain and get it a bit cheaper. I think what I would say is over the past couple of days, I've learned not to underestimate these earlier guns from Umarex, you know, like this and the PPKS that I reviewed just a day or so ago. Excellent build quality and very deserving of your attention. You know, this is to an extent field strippable, unlike more modern pistols like the VP9 and the Smith & Wesson M&P. Again, lovely pistols in their own right. I don't dislike them. And as I said before, I think I've said this point before, there's a reason for every pistol in my collection. I might have just said this to somebody in a conversation, actually, on the comments. Would I ever have time to do a video for the reasons for each? I don't know. But I don't just buy airguns because they exist. There's a reason in my head for me making every single purchase that I make. There's something about a gun that has grabbed my attention, or the way it works, or is it something a bit different, or is it a classic? Is it one that I feel like I've always wanted? And this is no exception. The Model 84. This is a really good looking replica. Really sturdy and stable in terms of the way it functions, tried and tested, and I really don't think you'd be disappointed if you took yourself to your local airgun shop or store and got your hands on an Umarex Model 84 or Cheetah .177 4.5mm BB shooting CO2 powered replica airgun. Thank you very much for your time. As always, thanks for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe, hit that bell. You'll see your little 1911 coming out there. Ping on the bell. I made that. So anyway, yeah, take care, stay safe, all the very best. Bye.